This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, DeLaw Schonke.
Hey, good Friday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 5th of April. Glad you could be with us. Here near the broadcast area, just drippy and foggy and depressing. And looking at the forecast, well, looking at southern Illinois, it could be some severe weather over the weekend and plenty of rain to go around throughout the state for the course of the day. And the 8 to 14-day outlook shows cooler and wetter than normal for this time of year. So that doesn't add very well. In fact, now, Rita, last week, if you remember, visited with Tom Heinold at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're going to have him back on today because there's talk of a shutdown on 15 up in the Quad Cities. You also have at St. Louis, the river's 8 feet higher than flood stage to 38. I believe the flood stage is 30, so you got high water in a lot of spaces. What does all of that mean? And so we'll talk to Tom later in the program. First up, though, Mike Doherty, Illinois Farm Bureau. We'll talk about the latest jobs report. We're back, baby. The economy is back after the jobs report. We'll talk about that. And we'll also visit with Gene Payne, IFCA, Fertilizer and Chemical Association. With this weather, with the locks and dams, with the whole thing, what does that mean for logistics in the fertilizer business coming up as well? All to come on a Friday, RFD Today.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're going to go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you going to do? You're going to go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You got to dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. No, you won't. Because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. Now go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local County Farm Bureau for your discount code number.
When it comes to social media, Sabrina Berkowitz connects rural routes for you. Sabrina covers a broad range of ag topics, so Farm Bureau members are the first to know about key issues. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up with a grain and livestock farm in my extended family, and today I really enjoy helping people learn how to use social media to advocate for agriculture.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
40 years of horses, 40 years of legends. It's the Midwest Horse Fair.
Best horse fair in the nation right here.
This is fun for families because there's so many different aspects of horses that they can see.
And there's top-of-the-line clothing and apparel and boots and hats and ropes and trinkets and gifts. Shopping is off the charts here. I hope you guys are ready because it's going to get wild.
It's the great Midwest Horse Fair.
April 12th through the 14th at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Visit MidwestHorseFair.com for more.
All right, welcome back to RFD Today. I'm DeLaw Schonke on a Friday, and we're joined in studio by senior economist at Illinois Farm Bureau, Mike Doherty. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, DeLoss, we got a lot going on.
Yes, we have a new jobs report. Talk about it nationally first, and boy, oh boy, we're back again after a dud in February.
Yeah, economists called this one right. They said, hold your horses. Don't worry about that phenomenal, pretty low February jobs report of only 20,000 new jobs created in February. It was a cold, snowy month up here in the north part of the country. And sure enough, it rebounded. We ended up with 196,000 new net jobs reported for March, which really the key thing here is it brings up the first quarter of the year to a 180,000 jobs per month average. We really needed this report to bring that first quarter number up.
Well, you said a month ago that a month does not make a quarter.
Exactly.
And so this evens itself. Plus, they revised February. Actually, they revised February 65%.
You are too much Rain Man this morning. Yeah, very good calculation there. You're right.
That sounds more impressive than just 13,000.
12,000 more jobs on top of 20,000 in February to come up with 32,000.
60% then.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So listen.
Either way,
you're too savant for me this morning, DeLoss. I can't keep up with you. So yeah, overall, this is what the market needed, and I think the equities market has been responding this morning to this jobs report.
Okay, but now let's break this down a little bit. Retail down again.
Yes, again. After we were down 20,000 in February, so a big drop in February, and then followed by 12,000 drop in March. Retail not doing well, and very interestingly, the reports have been that in Chicago, of all the places for hiring into retail, it's one of the worst of the big metro areas.
Yeah.
It's not doing well.
Manufacturing down.
Manufacturing was down, and there's another interesting one because last year in 2018, manufacturing in Illinois was up considerably, which we had not had for a long time. We were being eclipsed by manufacturing going up in Indiana and neighboring states, and a lot of political hay was made out of that. In 2018, that kind of reversed itself. Illinois had greater manufacturing. It really helped Illinois. And a lot of people think that Illinois is particularly manufacturing dependent. That's really not the case. It's about average for the U.S. We do have significant manufacturing spread around our state, St. Louis, Central Illinois, and Northern. So when we see manufacturing down, that probably does not bode well. Yeah. If it spills over, if it's true for Illinois, it probably does not bode well locally.
Where then are the jobs?
So the jobs continue to be, you can look at metro areas. I just looked at Bloomington Normal. I did a report this week for BN by the Numbers, Economic Development Council on this. And here in Central Illinois in our communities, Illinois-wide, nationwide, it's leisure and hospitality. They were way up in this jobs report. This is typical of that. Now, leisure and hospitality, you're talking hotel and also conferences and business conferences. They get in. They are in that leisure and hospitality sector. So yes,
that's sustainable.
Yes.
If we're all going to just meet by Skype and all that stuff, is that stuff sustainable?
You wouldn't think so, but it's surprising. That's a very interesting discussion right there because this was talked about 10 years ago. Skype, the Internet, is going to eliminate the need for people to fly all over and meet face-to-face. It hasn't happened. At least if it's going to happen, it hasn't happened. Yes, people do more transactions over the Internet and more email and that, but the value of face-to-face seems to almost increase despite the Internet. There's that human, that ability to read the person's body language, their tone of voice. That's why O'Hare Airport is still as busy as it is, and that's why Rosemont, all those conference hotels around there, you don't see them suffering for lack of conferences. So people are still flying in to talk face to face, but that wasn't the only sector that was way up.
Oh, healthcare way up
continues. We're an aging population. So how does this play out with an aging population? Well, you end up with a declining labor force participation. If your average age is getting older, If you, depending on your corporate employment and government employment, because those people tend to retire earlier, they have better pension systems in general than many other people do. So if you're in a community with that being a big part of your labor force, you've got this kind of early retirement. And so that's part of the aging population. So that's on one side of the coin. On the other side is those people are more often going to a doctor, going to a hospital, going to the dentist, going to the physical therapist. And, this growth in healthcare is part of the aging population. 50,000 new jobs. Wow. In this report, just in healthcare alone, for that job sector, 2018, 400,000 new jobs. Wow. And that, the projections are that's going to increase every year for at least the next 3 years, that sector. Wow. So if you've got a son or a daughter thinking about becoming a nurse or a nurse practitioner or a doctor,
X-ray tech, all
tell them
that.
thumbs up,
Probably, so hospitals for one, but just specialization for another, from head to toe, I would think. Yes, the
technology continues to increase. And part of this, a little piece of the story on this, DeLoss, is how, businesses have rebuffed these reports that wages have not increased enough. They point out that, wages haven't increased, but the amount of health care we're covering keeps going up. And, some of that was due to federal legislation under the previous administration. And so the health care cost for employers is embedded in these job numbers because more people have more coverage. They're going to go see a doctor more often.
All right. We'll talk a little bit more about the economy. If the economy is still growing, can we be in recession? Is that a thing? And if so, how does that work? We'll get into all that stuff. And then more to come, Gene Payne and also Tom Heinold. Good show. I'd listen to this show. Good show today on RFD today.
When it comes to our members, Chris Magnuson connects rural routes for you. Chris leads Illinois Farm Bureau's efforts to provide valuable information to our members. He has spent 2 decades with IFB. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a farm with corn, soybeans, and Christmas trees. I've been in ag communication for 3 decades now. My greatest satisfaction has always remained the same, to serve our members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
It's where your home is built, your landscape is planted, and your children play. Land is all around us, so Illinois farmers have dedicated years to learning how to best care for it. Today, we're bridging modern knowledge with resources from Mother Nature to promote natural soil activity and choosing crops that enhance soil health. To learn more about conservation efforts, visit ilfarmersconserve.com. Preserving our water, protecting our land, providing our food.
This message brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau.
Thanks for shopping. Please come again.
Wow, you're really getting some bargains today. Think of all the money you've saved.
I know. And even better, my purchases are helping teach kids about agriculture.
Whoa, back up. I know you got some deals today, but I don't remember that purchase.
I use my Illinois Farm Bureau Visa card. Each time it's swiped, the IAA Credit Union makes a contribution to the Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom program.
Now that's a great deal. What else does your card do?
It's what it doesn't do. Charge me extra fees, have surprise rate jumps. Not with this card. I use it for all of my purchases.
I like the sound of that. Tell me, exactly what does Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom do?
They teach kids where their food really comes from. Just by using my card, I help provide teachers and volunteers with free materials so they can spread the message of the importance of agriculture in their classrooms.
You know, the IFB Visa card may be the best bargain yet. I'm going to get one of those for myself.
Get a great card, help a great cause. Go to IAAFoundation.org and click on the IFB Visa card to get one of your own.
This is the story of Mrs. Clark, who has lived on this very block most of her 80 years, often seen walking to town or serving brownies to the neighborhood kids, and everyone loves her. 2 years ago, a certain family member moved in to look after Mrs. Clark, and that's when everything changed. Mrs. Clark became the victim of elder abuse.
Elder abuse is often closer to home than you think or want to believe. McGruff, the crime dog here. The National Crime Prevention Council wants you to know the signs of elder abuse. Bruises, isolation, reduced activities, poor hygiene, depression, and financial problems. Protect yourself and speak out if you recognize signs of abuse in others.
Elder abuse is a crime that affects over 2 million senior citizens every year. Even more astounding, it's most commonly committed by a family member or someone they trusted. If you suspect abuse, contact your local law enforcement agency. To learn more, go to ncpc.org/seniors. That's ncpc.org/seniors. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Department of Justice.
All right, welcome back to RFD Today on a Friday. I'm DeLaw's Yankee. Mike Doherty is in studio, senior economist, Illinois Farm Bureau. Economic growth outlook has been lowered. So still growth, but not as much growth expected.
Correct. It was...
this is national.
These are national expectations, and they were forecasting about a 2.3. That was lower, 2.3% in December, which was lower than the administration was hoping for 3%. We came in at about 2.9% in 2018. The forecast dropped to 2.3% for 2019. Now that's been lowered. This is Federal Reserve Bank.
Okay.
Federal Reserve Bank is lowering it to 2.1% GDP growth rate. And remember, a lot of people don't realize this, but the Federal Reserve banks have economist staff, and they are sharp. I actually almost applied for one of those jobs out of grad school. I wasn't sure I could cut it, but they have staff at all the dozen or so Federal Reserve banks around the country. I think it might be 18 altogether, whatever. And there's one in Chicago, there's one in St. Louis, plus in Washington. If you're in Washington, walking down the mall, there's the Federal Reserve Bank, central bank is there, and it's got buco loads, what they call macro economists.
Yeah.
That's all these
everything.
guys. Let me tell you something. I'm an applied economist. Applied economists are like industry economists like myself. We don't even relate to these macro economists. That's how far out they are.
They're out there.
They're out there every day.
So now if you drop it from 2.3 to 2.1.
Yeah.
If it goes from 2.9 1 year to 2.1. And let's say I'm running for a major office and I'm trying to poke at the people who are already in office.
Right.
Could I say that's a recession?
No. You'd have to have you'd have to be watching over quarter to quarter. If you had 2 quarters in a row of there's not a real firm there are some working, I guess I call them working definitions of that, where you go into a real major slump in the economy, but it's got to be 2 quarters in a row sustained. So you got to be more than 6 months of low growth, which usually a lot of people say, oh, well, that happen. That doesn't happen very often.
We're in a Twitter life-size news cycle now. We don't have time to wait for 6 months to come around.
6 months is a long time for the economy to lay down, because otherwise what happens is even if you have 2-3 months, even 4 months, then it comes back up again. That's why.
One thing we were watching a couple of weeks ago, the 10-year note and the 3-month note.
Yes,
the 10-year note's at around 2.5, and the 3-month is at like 2.45 right now. So there's a bit of distance there, but that's been something to watch. You don't want them too close together.
No, because otherwise you're betting that you're making an investment in the future, and you're giving somebody your money, buying those notes, right? You're letting somebody else use that money, and they're saying, I can return you more in the short run than I can if you let me keep it for a long time. And that doesn't work for people. And people are going, wait a minute, that must mean things are going to be worse in the long run. Well, wait a minute. If things are going to be worse in the long run, maybe I better make my change in plans right now.
Yeah, because the CD should always pay more after 5 years than it would for 1 year.
Exactly. So that's usually, those are highly correlated with recessions. But it's just a correlation. It's not causation.
Ooh, now look at those words. That sounds,
Every
you drop grad school and you drop those words.
Everybody likes to drop that one. Yeah.
Can we go to, this was a fascinating one to me. Now I got to figure out where it is. 32 major cities around the world, real home prices on average grew 24% in the last 5 years. How could that be sustainable?
I know.
If wages don't keep up with that.
Exactly. So this is where you're seeing the push, especially on the East and West Coast. Now you saw it in Chicago, because Chicago housing prices, even though they're a lot lower, of the 20 major metro areas of the United States that are followed, they have been the laggard on resurgence in housing prices. They were at 3% increase last year for existing homes. But even Chicago, if you go up there from Bloomington, Illinois, or from Peoria or Carbondale, you're kind of blown away by the housing prices, right? I mean, you're like, wow, an apartment up there in DuPage County is like double what it is down here in Les Isles, Peru, or something like that. And so even the Midwest, even Chicago, it's increased, And to your point that that's why you're seeing the pressure for minimum wage increases. Because you do have service people, you have police, firemen, and all that, and you see a lot of upward pressure on wages paid for those service jobs by the cities, plus minimum wage for all the people working in hotels and restaurants in the downtown areas. Because they otherwise they're commuting in like an hour away, and you see this happening despite metro trains and all this that we're waiting for to increase. For mass transportation, you still see all these people commuting in and fighting to get on the trains. I was out in L.A. A couple times last year, and people are commuting from up in the hills way out, 30 miles out, to get into L.A. for service jobs.
Wow.
Because they can't afford to live. They can't afford the housing.
Sure, yeah. Well, we've talked before. People live in their Honda instead of living in a.
And we were talking about renting our, on going on Zillow.
That's right.
Zillow.temporarybackseatofmycar.com.
Wow. Yeah. If you had a passenger van, you could put 3 people.
I'm thinking some of these cabs, these tractor cabs that are very well insulated, could be temporary housing over the winters. They're sitting in the sheds, not doing anything.
It's a cash cow waiting to happen.
Maybe so.
Well, we had pretty good, too, in several of the numbers. We're almost out of time here, but, Peoria gained, Champaign-Urbana gained.
In jobs in February. Those are the February job numbers, which was pretty darn good.
Carbondale, Marion held even, for example. And Kankakee up 0.6% year over year.
Despite a hard winter in February. So actually good news, except for Bloomington Normal was down by 1,200 month over month, and that started last April due to some cutbacks and some changes
some other businesses.
In Bloomington Normal, a fairly major employer.
All right.
There we go.
Mike Doherty, Senior Economist, Illinois Farm Bureau. Gene Payne, IFCA, is up next on RFD today.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
Farm, family, food. Those 3 words best describe Illinois Farm Bureau. Farm. For 100 years, Farm Bureau in Illinois has represented and served the men and women who make Illinois one of the top food-producing states. Family. At the heart of rural Illinois are traditional farm families who work together through Illinois Farm Bureau. And food. Farm Bureau families are proud to grow the healthy food they provide their families and yours. Farm, family, food. The heart of Farm Bureau in Illinois.
Warmer weather means a longer honeydew list. Your county farm bureau can help you stay on top of your project list and save you money along the way. A Farm Bureau membership offer includes discounts on equipment and supplies from Grainger, plus free shipping on all standard Grainger products. Browse thousands of items from landscaping equipment to power tools. Anything you need to get the job done, Grainger has it. Not a Farm Bureau member? Call us at 309-557-2689. Or visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Dina Stroish connects rural routes for you. From the Farm Bill to crop insurance to GMO labeling, her expertise is apparent in the stories she reports. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I get to meet interesting people and share their stories, and I get paid to do it. I cover ag policy and really enjoy keeping the farming community updated on these important issues.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
As you prepare for planting season, remember your neighbors. Whether you're an applicator, grower, or beekeeper, use FieldWatch to register your farm and monitor for sensitive sites around you. FieldWatch is a free, easy-to-use online mapping tool. Consulting FieldWatch is now a requirement for the over-the-top use dicamba products. Communicating with your neighbors will help you protect your farm and the environment. Don't wait. Go online to fieldwatch.com. Growing agriculture. We grow best together.
Welcome back. We're pleased to have in studio the president of Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association, Gene Payne, is with us. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good.
Here we are into April,
Yeah.
and things will get done. We still have plenty of time to plant corn and all that sort of thing. But from the supply chain, what in the world? How do you get through these next couple of
I know.
weeks and months?
I was talking to several retailers this week, and of course everybody's sitting in the office looking out the window every day, right? Wishing they could be doing something else. And I think, last December, when it started raining and we realized at the middle of December, we were not going to get the fall ammonia on, and then all the fertilizer dealers had their fertilizer ammonia contracts canceled. So in order to try to take advantage of prices at that time that were going up on ammonia, they all filled up pretty much every nurse tank and storage tank in the state of Illinois.
In December?
Yes, in December, because the price of nitrogen was going up and they wanted to at least get those tons secured for spring, thinking that we would have a very busy spring because we had a terrible fall. So now we're sitting here with a lot of nitrogen. So we can only store 15% of the ammonia that we use at the retail level. So it's not a huge amount, but still, the thought was that we would get it on this spring. And now we're seeing softening prices in the nitrogen market, essentially because nothing is moving. And of course, the supply and demand situation, the fertilizer industry is trying to pique some interest in somebody buying something. So the prices are getting soft, and our members in Illinois are pretty much stuck with the high-priced ammonia, and as with the farmers be, who sign contracts as well. And as you get into April and people think about the 2 weeks that you're supposed to wait after you applied nitrogen to plant corn, you're already April, 5th today?
Yeah.
And most of our farmers certainly like to get their corn planted before the end of April, right, DeLoss?
That'd be nice.
So people are getting a little worried about how this is going to happen, and there's lots of discussion, well, I won't put ammonia on, I'll switch to UAN. And I guess I just would remind people that Illinois we have a lot of UAN supply, but 70% of our nitrogen is usually in the form of ammonia, and that's how our system is kind of set up. And you got to remember Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Missouri, Ohio, everybody's going to want UAN at the same time.
Right at the same time.
And it doesn't come through a pipeline like ammonia does. It comes through truck, rail, barge. Rivers are high. The rail system's messed up from the flood out west in Nebraska. So it's, from a logistical standpoint, it's not like you can just say, okay, we're switching from ammonia to UAN and there's going to be plenty of product available when everybody wants it. It's a real concern out there.
If I could only store 15% at a time, and so I bought that in December, like you were talking about. Surely I bought more thinking, well, that 15% is going to be gone.
Oh, yeah.
Split, so we'll buy even more. So they're holding even more than...
Sure. I mean, the retailers have spring contracts because they assume that by now they would have gone through the 15% of storage that they held over all winter and would be buying the spring ammonia, and which typically has to be put on by, May 31st, which should include pre-plant and pretty much side dress season. But, the longer every day that goes by is one less day to get that done. And so there'll be a lot of nervousness about whether what they're going to do with those contracts that they paid on this spring, especially if the price of nitrogen remains soft or goes on the downside. And, of course, nobody wants to buy anything as the price is going down.
Right. Why would you buy it? The price is going down.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted me to buy it in the middle and then watch it go down even farther. So there's a lot of nervousness. And I know profitability for farmers is a huge concern this year, and it always is for the retailers, too, when our customers are not profitable. But this is kind of like throwing some more salt in the wound of where we stand on the supply side of thing in terms of paying employees and being profitable in the supply chain as well.
I think we've talked about this. I know I've talked with others about this, agronomists and others, and just the need that it seems like this would be the perfect year to really hone on that, the MRTM.
Yeah.
Just how much do I really need for this year?
Right. I mean, and I think the one thing that we have going for us in Illinois is the MRTN was just updated just a couple weeks ago with all the 2018 nitrogen rate trials, of which we did many on Illinois farms, not just at university sites. The majority are done with farmers. So actual yield results based on nitrogen rates, whatever the temperature and growing conditions were, those feed the nitrogen rate calculator. So that range, if you go in for central, northern, or southern Illinois, go to the nitrogen rate calculator. It's easy to find on the website. Click on the state of Illinois, put in, your form of nitrogen that you want to use this spring, whether it's ammonia or UAN or urea or a combination, and it'll give you a range. And it's usually, say for central Illinois, between 170 and 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. And if you have a highly productive growing situation, then you should feel comfortable being on the high end of that. If your experience has been otherwise, that's the nice thing about the nitrogen rate calculator. It gives you flexibility. But, I mean, going over what it recommends is typically over the years meant that you spent more on nitrogen than you needed to, and you didn't optimize any yield by putting on that extra nitrogen. So with a wet year, our water supplies are going to be challenged because nitrogen moves with water. So anytime you have a rainy climate, you have the potential for nitrogen loss. So
certainly you're not an economist here, but just the notion, if everyone's going to say, well, let's just switch to UAN, the whole supply and demand, if everyone's going to want it at the same time, and the supply doesn't move at the same time, so we're going to watch one price go down while who knows what might happen to the other one.
Right. And there have been times, when ammonia has been more, equally as expensive as UAN. UAN is usually always more per pound of nitrogen than ammonia is. Wow. And you get into a situation where it becomes the preferred method, then certainly we'll see the price react.
All right, I'm going to call Gene Payne, Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association. We will continue that conversation. You got part of it, if you've only made that 15% purchase in December and you haven't used that yet, and how's all this going to get used? Now, looking back last year at the Ag Statistics Report, it was April 23. The April 23rd report showed that we were 4% done with corn planting, and in the next 3 weeks we planted 70%. So, yes, it's still early, but what if this continues for a while? We'll continue our discussion next with Gene on RFD Today.
Clean water matters to all of us. For years, farmers have been calling for clean water and clear rules because we know it's possible to have both. Now is the time to make your voice heard. Text WATERS to 52886 and support the new clean water rule proposed by the EPA and Army Corps. Don't wait. The 60-day comment period has begun, so text WATERS to 52886. Contact your local county farm bureau for more information on clean water and clear rules.
Yes, I listen to a lot of talk radio, but I wouldn't call myself a political junkie. I guess that's why I like being a member of the Illinois Farm Bureau. No matter what my comfort level is, Farm Bureau has something for me and my farm. As an Illinois Farm Bureau member, I can pick and choose what's best for me, from reading election news and Farm Week to actually going to Washington. That's enough to make me a policy nut after all.
Call your county farm bureau and customize your membership today.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. We're down 3 for corn. Now we're down 9 cents for soybeans here as we conclude the week. May corn down 3.5, 361 3/4. July down 3 3/4, 370 1/2. December down 3 1/4, 389. May soybeans, meanwhile, are down 9 1/4, 897 1/4. July down 9, 910 1/2. November down 8 1/4. 931 1/4. Soybean meal is down $4.40 a ton, $307.50. Soybean oil off a nickel. May wheat down 3.5, $4.67 1/4. July down 4, $4.69 3/4. April hogs off a nickel, $79.52. May down $1.17, $89.65. April cattle down to $135, $126.20. June down $160, $119.97. The Lost Yankee RFD Radio Network.
Years of horses, 40 years of legends. It's the Midwest Horse Fair.
Best horse fair in the nation right here.
This is fun for families because there's so many different aspects of horses that they can see.
And there's top-of-the-line clothing and apparel and boots and hats and ropes and trinkets and gifts. The shopping is off the charts here. I hope you guys are ready because this is going to get wild.
It's the great Midwest Horse Fair. April 12th through the 14th at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Visit MidwestHorseFair.com for more.
All right, welcome back to RFD Today. On a Friday, I'm DeLoss Yankee. Gene Payne is in studio. Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association, IFCA.com. And, well, we're just about to talk with Tom Heinold at U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because there's talk of this weekend locking down 15.
Yeah.
We talked to elevator guys near Quincy a couple weeks ago with high water there. High water all over the place. So what does that mean for you then for just getting product?
So no one's really focused too much on the fertilizer industry on this because no fertilizer is moving, right? Because we haven't started application season yet. But it is definitely an issue for us because as grain goes south and gets unloaded at the port in New Orleans, the barges come back north with fertilizer in them. UAN and urea mostly. And we haven't seen that movement because there's so much stagnation in the grain market right now in the river system. So what we have staged for spring is in a good place to get us started. But once the farmers blow through that first supply that all the retailers have stored, then getting that replenishment could be a real issue, especially on the urea and the UAN side.
Wow. So the boats go down from here, and then those crops go into bigger boats.
Yes.
To be moved down the line, and then those boats should come back up with fertilizer.
Yes, that's usually how it works.
But at the moment, they're still holding the grain down.
Right, and there's people that want to move fertilizer but cannot find barges to put it into because the barges are all full and staged and waiting to be unloaded. Barge rates for fertilizer have doubled from their normal value, which indicates the fact that there's a shortage, right? And that's why they're so expensive for people who are looking for anything. And then then that's bad enough, but then put the flooding situation on top of it. And so even if the grain, a trade deal is reached, I heard something on the news about that, they're making more progress. Yeah. And let's say the grain all gets emptied out of those barges and you fill it with fertilizer, then all of a sudden you find out that the lock in St. Louis is shut down.
Right. And there's no possible way you could truck that or train that cost effectively, I wouldn't think.
You can, not cost effectively, no. I mean, people will do whatever they have to do. I mean, our industry does a phenomenal job with logistics. I mean, we don't hardly think about it because it materially, it magically appears, it seems like, but there's a lot of people that spend their entire work day doing nothing but fertilizer logistics, trying to stage this. And DeLoss is not just Illinois. I mean, believe it or not, Illinois got more fall fertilizer on than most states in the Midwest did. Iowa was worse than us. Minnesota was worse. Wisconsin was worse. We're in a little bit better situation, not a lot, but better than those states. But they're going to be, we compete with that demand in the Midwest.
Well, we can talk from chemical side as well because, just yesterday we had a conversation about this, we used to plant corn and you take a week off and you plant soybeans. And as that has evolved over time, and we didn't fight fall weeds and we didn't fight fall weeds and we still have the new ones to come.
Right.
How we deal with all of that at the same time.
Yeah, and with wet soils and if it ever does warm up, those weeds are going to be happy to show themselves. I think this is a year that you really have to sit down and put together a comprehensive weed management system. It cannot all be handled post-emerge. And, weeds will germinate all summer long until crops canopy over. So, just thinking that you can go out there and kill it with one shot and be good, we're going to have a residual program in place. And it was funny, yesterday I was talking about the worker protection standard with the Illinois Department of Ag, which there's new rules out there for that, which a lot of people aren't aware of. But we don't have too many workers in Illinois because in our row crop situation, herbicides do the weeding for us. And you start thinking about what happens in a year where, you have to go out and maybe hire people to pull weeds, then you've got to comply with the worker protection standard.
Now, what you were talking about before with anhydrous and how long do you wait?
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing burn down, that sort of thing, and how long do you wait? Because, just based on the 8-14 day forecast, looks like we're going to be cool and wet for a while, and it's going to be hard to wait.
Yeah,
as that calendar keeps moving along.
Well, it's another worrisome thing because typically we're well on our way and have burn down season well underway by now. And when I say burn down, I mean knocking off the weeds that survived the winter, overwintered, bloomed in the early spring. And, burn down is typically a 2,4-D glyphosate type of situation. And it's widespread in Illinois in the farming community. We always try to get it done before, the trees bud out. And the later that goes, the more we have to really pay attention to drift and burn down. And of course, everybody's attention is already on pesticide use. And so burn down is an important part of what we do in Illinois. But the later that gets, the harder that is. And especially if we get days that the winds are just not cooperating. And so all of this is just going to get compressed. Burn down season, fertilizer season, planting season, post-application season. And then as you indicated, we almost always spray corn before we spray beans.
Mm-hmm.
It might be just the opposite this year.
Wow. That's a lot to take in.
I feel sorry for
a lot of things to figure out.
The retailers are quite stressed out about just thinking about the workload. Of course, they're so anxious to get started, but once they do get started, then, of course, safety is something everybody's going to have to really try to take the time to think about. The last year we had the most anhydrous ammonia accidents was the spring of 2010 when we had a very poor fall fertilizer season in 2009, and we saw almost a quadrupling of the number of average ammonia accidents we have because there's just so many people trying to get so much done in so little time and getting in a hurry. And ammonia.
Talking about in the fields or with the tanks
both.
or. Okay.
Transportation, loading and unloading, application in the field. We saw a cross-section of a lot of things in 2010.
Wow. Because everybody needs the same thing done at the same time. And how do you
and everybody thinks, well, I'll just hurry a little bit more with this. And ammonia is unforgiving if you forget to follow the procedures very carefully and consistently and deliberately, especially in transportation. 25 mile an hour is really the maximum safe towing speed for anhydrous ammonia nurse tanks. And you might think, I need to get there faster than that, but you lose control of those tanks in the back, and it's never a good situation.
Yeah, it's hard to get that back, too, when those things start swerving. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I know.
By the way.
I know.
Just from a dicamba standpoint with training and certification, now that we're into April, hopefully that has wrapped itself.
Classroom training ended last week in Moline with the last class. And, now there's 2 online programs available on the dicamba training website that you can take to become certified. I recommend people go through them again just as a reminder, if you have time, before you start getting into dicamba season. And if we plant soybeans first, and dicamba is part of the program, it's 45 days after planting. So, I know people were concerned a little bit about the cutoff date, but really, if we get soybeans planted in mid-April, the 45 days will be here before the cutoff date.
Right. Gene Payne, IFCA, thanks so much.
You're
Good
welcome.
to see you again.
You're welcome, DeLoss.
And you can learn more, ifca.com. You can give them a follow on Twitter at ILFertKim. Hey, little update. Yesterday, we talked to Jenny Jackson at Illinois Pork. We mentioned their pulled pork madness that they were doing, and they have narrowed that now to 2 sites. They're down to the 2 finalists. You can find this on Illinois Pork Producers Association through their Facebook page. The finalists are Paulie's Barbecue, which is in Arthur, and Farmer Smoked, which is in Princeton. And I feel road trips will certainly be in order in the near future. Final segment of the program will come up next on RFD Today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yonke. Illinois direct hog market late in the week steady to firm, $46 to $56 a hundredweight. We've seen lean hog futures continue to gain ground. June getting close to $1 a pound. Sow market another $1 higher, 36 to 46 for lightweights, 42 to 50 for heavyweights. In Greenville this week, they had slaughter steers and heifers $1 lower, $1.50 lower on low choice and selects. Steers and heifers from 123 to 127. High dressing steers to 131. Prime lots of steers and heifers up to 134. 6-weight steers 110 to 145. 7-weight feeders 95 to 115. And 5-weight heifers, 130 to 150. 6-weights, 95 to 1 1/4. DeLoss Yankee, RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And you know, that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
Welcome back. It's our final segment of the week on RFD today. Joining us now from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Rock Island District, Tom Heinold is on the program. Tom, how are you?
Very well, thank you, DeLoss.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I saw through Quad Cities TV that is it Sunday that the high water may be a little too much up your way, up in the Quad Cities.
Well, the Illinois waterway is actually all set, but the main stem Mississippi absolutely is experiencing flooding right now. In fact, by the end of this weekend, of the 12 locks within my district on the Mississippi from Dubuque, Iowa, down to Saverton, Missouri, 11 of the 12 of them will be closed due to flooding.
Wow. I assume some of them have already been. I believe St. Louis is like 8 feet higher than stage, so that would certainly provide a lot of pressure as you move north.
That's right. The crests are coming through between now and about, say, the 18th of April. And yes, we've had, I think, locks 16, 17, 18, and 20 through 22 have been closed for a couple of weeks now. And according to the forecast, the bump that's coming through won't fall off very quickly. We anticipate at least another 10 days to 2 weeks of closure on the Mississippi.
Wow. And part of that, let's just say it was dry for a stretch where you are, factors to the north and south could still have an impact on that sort of thing. I mean, it's not just something that's local for you. There's so many things at play in these cases.
There are a lot of factors that play into it. I understand on the Mississippi, on the west coast of Iowa, if you will, they're having it actually worse than we are, believe it or not. They've had levees over top, and it's a mess over there, too. The President of the United States just recently declared a flood disaster for the state of Iowa, and there is still snow up north yet to melt. So,
wow.
We haven't even seen the April showers yet, so the National Weather Service forecast can only accurately predict the weather, say, out 7 to 10 days. After that, we might not be through the worst of it yet.
Is it a case where the water is just too darn high, or is it at some point in there a case of, look, there's just so much pressure from this water, we can't get these gates open and closed?
It's actually, it's just basically the river stage. When the river gets up high enough that it is pouring over the top of the lock gates at our locks, some sites are completely submerged, and we've had to actually pull the motors and brakes and get them to high ground so that they don't suffer damages due to flood. You know as well as I do, electrical motors and water don't mix very well. So when that happens, we are physically not able to lock a boat.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, no one's getting there, no boats are getting there, and so then everything just sits, I assume.
Unfortunately, yes. And in fact, this is exacerbating a bad situation from even last fall. Usually the fall is our dry period when we're locking like crazy trying to get the products of America's breadbasket here out, through New Orleans to international markets. And we actually had a relatively rare fall flood last fall that prevented navigation for a bit. So there are some boats stranded out there, and they've had to make some decisions to get that stuff onto roads and rails to get it down south. And this is very much hurting us.
We're talking about up and down at this point. So if this ever resolves itself, you have to run traffic both ways on what seems to be a one-lane road, essentially. That's exactly right. Over on the Ohio, they have twin locks, so they could work on one and pass traffic through another. But over here, it is very much a one-lane road. If you have a lock shut down, you're stuck. So all of the fertilizer that's waiting to come up, and maybe some of the grain that didn't get down last fall, it's all at a standstill right now. Now, did you mention is the Illinois River in better shape then? They are in much better shape. The snow melt in the Illinois River Basin is all gone by now. They've had some high water, but fortunately our predecessors at Peoria and LaGrange designed those dams to be wicket dams. Yep. So the wickets are laying on the bottom of the river, and those two sites at Peoria and LaGrange, even though the lock walls are underwater and we're not able to lock a boat, we don't need to lock a boat because we've got the wickets laying on the bottom of the river. So there's an open navigable pass actually through the dam at those two sites. And the rest of the folks more upstream on the Illinois waterway are in very good shape, and we are open for business over there. So where that meets the Mississippi, is that far enough south where they can keep moving then? If they can get downstream of LaGrange, actually probably not. Okay. Once they reach the flooding in the St. Louis area, they are probably going to be stuck again. But some interpool traffic and some interpool commerce from Lake Michigan down probably is just upstream of St. Louis is possible right now. Yeah, I was going to ask, can you just truck a bunch of stuff from the Quad Cities toward Peoria and then move it? But it's probably not as easy as that sounds. Yeah, that costs a little more, of course. Every time you put more miles on a truck to get it to a barge on a different river, that's a cost consideration, sure. Wow. And so if these boats are full already, if the barges are full, surely there are some people saying, hey, we need to move stuff, but we just can't even find a boat right now. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, boy. Well, that's a tough situation, and who knows when it's going to resolve itself. We'll have to talk to you in a couple of weeks then and just see how things are going, Tom. Thanks so much. I'd be glad to. Thanks, Loss. All right. Tom Heinold. Rita visited with him last week talking about some work that is to be done in 2019 ahead of course, some of the big projects will take place in 2020. So we'll be following that and see how it goes. High water, it gets too high. You're out at that point. Everybody out of the pool, unfortunately. I'm DeLoss Yankee saying watch your ends. Have a great weekend. We'll be back in studio on Monday.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.